Thank you for joining us for this month's edition of Leading the Conversation. This is our opportunity each month to learn about something important in our community, get to know a community leader better, and to also understand how we could be the kind of neighbors that Jesus calls us to be. Today, I am very grateful to have with me our new mayor, Mayor Shelly Carlson. Thank you for being with us.
Absolutely. I'm really honored and excited to be here.
And in addition to being the mayor, you also have another job with a long, complicated name where you manage a federal grant that focuses on elder abuse multidisciplinary teams throughout Minnesota. And you do this through the Minnesota Elder Justice Center.
Yes. Congratulations, you got it.
So I would love it if you start by just sharing some of your background with us.
Yeah, well, so my name's Shelly Carlson. I am originally from Minot, North Dakota. Born and was raised in Minot, and I came here to go to college at the Minnesota Elder Justice Center. It was Moorhead State at the time.
Yep.
So I graduated with a paralegal degree from Moorhead State and started my first professional job as a paralegal in the city prosecutor's office for Moorhead, and then moved on to the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center. And so my background has really been in the domestic violence, sexual assault advocacy world. I was the director of victim services in the Clay County Attorney's Office. And then the last 10 years, I've really been focusing on elder justice issues and really looking to determine ways that we can help older and vulnerable adults across the state of Minnesota, but I also do national trainings. So I also have my master's degree in public administration from Moorhead State, and my husband and I have been married. It'll be, you get to that point where you're like, okay, I got to count here. It'll be 24 years in August that we will have been married, and we have 2 kids. One goes to NDSU, one goes to UND, so that's a fun time in my household.
A little bit of rivalry there.
Who to cheer for? It kind of depends on the sport, though, a little bit. So I have a day job, and then was appointed mayor in February, and I'm also the chair of the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion Authority. So,
all right. Well, how did you get into criminal justice? Like, how was this?
Yeah.
Why did this appeal to you, or how did you choose this major?
Yeah, so with my paralegal degree, I was very interested in the law and justice for all. And I started volunteering at the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center. And then when I was hired by the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center, it really became a marriage between my legal background and then my advocacy background. And I would assist victims of domestic violence and sexual assault in completing the paperwork and attending court hearings with them for protection orders, and started conducting a lot of training to law enforcement on domestic violence and identifying it and intervening in those cases, and then it just kind of continued from there.
All right. What are some mile markers on your way to being where you are today? Some things that maybe have been significant life experiences that have kind of shaped you and led you here?
Yeah, so, thinking about that, kind of some pivotal, not a big word, but for some reason I'm struggling. Areas where I've had to pivot in my life, we'll just say it that way. Yeah. My parents are divorced, and so I had the opportunity to move in with my dad when I was in high school. And so that was a moment where I really had the opportunity to get to know my father, because I had always lived with my mom and stepdad prior to that. So that was a big moment. And then when I was 19, I had a younger brother who was killed in a motorcycle accident. And that really illuminated for me how precious life is, and really intensified my focus on how family and faith are really the kind of the cornerstones of what I do, and wanting to make sure that life is one where everybody truly can embrace only the positive aspects. And then, kind of the standard, getting married is a very momentous time, and having my children has been momentous, and of course running for city council and being elected to that higher level of public service has been pivotal. I don't know why I can't say that word today.
Yeah.
And then becoming mayor is just really afforded me this opportunity to even kind of spread more good in the community.
As a city council member, what were some things that you were most passionate about?
You know, Mayor Judd had appointed me to the library board. When I ran, I just really wanted to and focused on making sure that Moorhead was the best it could be. So I didn't really run on any special platform or any special project that I wanted to focus on. But when Mayor Judd appointed me to the library board, it really opened my eyes to all the different services that amenity in our community provides. And with COVID this last year, they really were able to ramp up the services that they were providing to the community, and their numbers skyrocketed, which a number of other different agencies and organizations like churches, those numbers skyrocketed because you had people who were able to access your services online that maybe they didn't come in person for whatever reason. And now those numbers are increasing. And same with the library. And I really developed a passion for that. I love to read, but libraries are so much more about than books nowadays. So that has really become a passion for me. And now being the mayor of the city of Moorhead, there are so many incredible projects that we're working on for the city. It's hard to, people say, well, what's the number one thing? I can't really name one thing that's really high priority over others. There's a lot of great opportunities here in our city. So I'm just, it's kind of like I'm ADD a little bit. Like we have the Great Diversion Project, we have our downtown plan, we have our parks, we have a trail system, we have our local option sales tax that we're trying to get the green light from the legislature to bring it to the citizens to raise money to develop a new library and a community center, which I know when I was door knocking, that was one of the things that our citizens talked about. So yeah, there's so many great things happening in our city.
So what are some things you're passionate about? I mean, you can list things you're passionate about in the city, but also just in your own personal interest. What are you passionate about?
Well, family. I adore and just absolutely love to spend time with my family. I loved my kids when they were younger, but it's really fun having them as adults and getting to do things with them. I have a large extended family, so I really enjoy doing things with them also. I love to read, which unfortunately I don't get to do a lot of reading now, but I do like audiobooks now, and so I subscribe to Audible, and so that's one way I walk around some of the ponds or in the parks in the city and listen to books. And I have a personal goal of learning how to play golf a little bit better. And by golf better, I mean just learning how to golf. Not even better.
There are opportunities in Moorhead to play golf.
Yes, there are. There are. And I am a horrible golfer, and I get asked to play golf all the time, and I'm like, I don't think I want to embarrass myself in public like that, so I need to take some lessons or something. So, and then going out to the lake. I mean, right? We're Minnesota. We all go to the lake in the summer, and I enjoy that.
Yeah, and it is something special. I mean, we have such harsh winters that if we can escape and go to a lake,
exactly,
I think it makes us strong enough to survive the next winter.
Yes, exactly. We soak up all our vitamin D in 3 months. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned there's a number of things going on in Moorhead, but I'm wondering, why is Moorhead positioned for a successful future?
So we have found a phrase. It's called a rising metro. And Moorhead truly meets this definition of a rising metro. And I actually brought the definition, so I'm going to read it. So rising metro is a growing city being intentionally designed as a hub of the 21st century. With a population of less than 100,000, rising metros have a stable tax base, at least one institution of higher learning, and growing entrepreneurial and art communities. And this is what Moorhead is. We developed a new vision statement that this is where the strong belong. And, you know, being able to muster through the winters and soaking up our vitamin D in 3 months, I mean, this is where the strong belong. We are Moorhead. We have a real vibrant business community, academic and art community, and we have a culture of achievement. But we have that air of curiosity too. So, you know, we really believe that this is where the strong belong. Yep. And that's what we try to embrace in every aspect of what we look at as projects for the city. So,
Are there any
Yeah.
projects that are currently either have already started or are about to start that kind of are part of this vision of being a rising metro?
So we just completed a downtown master plan, and we had incredible community participation. That's one thing I love about Moorhead is our citizens want to provide input, and we have people with incredible ideas. And we've been able to incorporate that into our downtown master plan and growing that part of our city. And then we have a trails program that within the next couple of years, it's going to be a continuous trail from Johnson Park all the way down to Blue Stem. We're looking at a couple different bridges. I know Fargo just accepted a grant, and so they're going to be building a bridge over into Moorhead. And so we're looking at really connecting our downtowns, and Viking Park, which is by the Yumcump Center, is going to become the downtown park for our metro area because that's where
beautiful.
it is absolutely beautiful, and it's right in the downtown of both Fargo and Moorhead. You know, like I had mentioned, our local option sales tax, you know, if we get the green light, like I said, from our legislature, then we are going to be getting input on what our community would like to see. And hopefully they will say yes to that in November 22, that we want this. So I'm just thinking of all the other incredible things. There's so many different things. We have a wish book through our Parks Department that has a number of different projects that if people are interested in donating to them, one of them is our inclusive playground. Yeah. Former council member Heidi Durand has really been leading that project. And the Kiwanis Club, I believe, has donated $10,000 towards that project. And it would be such an amenity for so many people and very inclusive, and that's what Moorhead is all about. So yeah, there's so many other things. A Rotary, all of the Rotaries around Fargo Moorhead are going to be building a natural playground. And if you go to the Rotary website, they have pictures of this natural playground, and it's going to be built over by the Yumcump Center. And it's going to just be a cool playground for kids to really access their creativity. And it's not where we're directing their play, they get to direct it and think of ways to do.
That's awesome. I love that idea.
Yeah.
So this could be about any of us in Moorhead, but being that we're here in our church right now, one of the questions I ask all of my guests is, how can we be the kind of neighbors that Jesus has called us to be? The kind of neighbors that care for one another, that support one another. Are there specific ways you can think of that I'm looking at it from a Christian lens, but also just from citywide? How can we care for one another?
Yeah, you know, I really think it begins with our personal values, but also I think this is the values of our city, is we are a caring community. We have a lot of compassion, and we are very inclusive and accepting. And I think you have to begin with those values. I think the city itself prides itself on the diversity that we have. Not just diversity with skin color, but diversity with our ethnic backgrounds, diversity in age, which is something at the Elder Justice Center that I'm always thinking about. You know, in order to have a rich fabric in your community, you need people of all aspects of life, young and old. You know, we have people who work and play and struggle and support and care each other, and we're just really, truly one community. And I think finding your niche, finding what you're passionate about. Some people are passionate, like I said, some people are passionate about the library, so they have a group called the Friends of the Library, and so they collect books and they donate books and raise money so that we have a higher level of literacy that our young kids can achieve too, but giving out those books to older adults too. Maybe it's a thrift store. Maybe it's beautification through the tree, planting trees. We're going to be building an edible forest in North Moorhead.
Oh, that's amazing.
And maybe volunteering that way. I think it's just finding your passion and then giving back and having that servant leadership. Yeah.
Well, and we as a church have signed up to help with the Earth Day cleanup that week. So we're going to be working in the park that's near the church here. But that's just one way we are appreciating that the city mapped that out for us so that we could take ownership of one area and help clean up all the stuff that flies around because of our strong wind.
Yes, we do have a lot of wind. Another way too, we just developed or started this program just January. It was January of this year. Is adopt a fire hydrant. So become a hydrant hero. And so if there's fire hydrants around the church, you could just adopt them. And then particularly in the wintertime, it's important to have the snow cleared out around those fire hydrants, because I think we have over 2,000 in the city. And so if you call the fire department and they come and they have to spend, even if it's 10 minutes, shoveling out the fire hydrant, it truly could save a life if it's just taken care of by somebody. So I adopted one. Mine is called Old Faithful.
Nice.
So you even get to name it if you want it.
That's exciting.
So again, it's just little things, but if we all do a little piece.
So if we're all chipping in, I mean, it's a way that's helping the whole city.
Absolutely.
And it's a way to take ownership too, because when you realize that there's a need and you take ownership for one little part of it, it helps you care about the whole community. Because I'm like, well, I care about my fire hydrant, and I wouldn't snow blow around it. My husband would. But then I also know, like, this is really important because I know that there's 2,000 fire hydrants in Moorhead now. And so I'm thinking this is a huge job, and to expect the city to do all of this, that would take a lot of work, when I actually could help as a citizen to make the work of our city just flow better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we are truly just greater than the sum of our parts.
I'm wondering, since you've had so much experience with elder justice, we have a fairly large elder population in Fargo-Moorhead. I mean, I think it's a nice place to retire. And so I'm wondering if there's any specific issues related to our elderly that you're passionate about, or something you've learned that it would just be good for our community to know.
So, we do have, I believe it's 12% of the city of Moorhead is over the age of, I don't recall now if it's 60 or 65, but that's still a significant portion of our population. And I think with our elder population, we have to, number one, redefine what elder is. I think we all know people who might be in their 50s that maybe they take on the stereotypical characteristics of somebody who is older, but we also know people who are in their 80s that are running marathons and aren't your stereotypical. So we have to really push aside that stereotype. That's kind of one of the last isms that's out there is ageism. And really looking at older adults as people who have a lot of wealth of knowledge and experience, and especially when they retire, that they still have that wealth and knowledge. I mean, if they were working one day and retired the next, that doesn't mean that they lost all of that. And to be able to still utilize their expertise. They do incredible work in the community. They do a lot of volunteering, but they can mentor our younger population in a number of ways. And it's important that they are also hired as part of a diversity. So when we think of diversity, again, we can think of a lot of different things, but oftentimes people don't think of age as a diversity characteristic. And when you have people of different generations working together, there's a lot of studies that show that whatever the organization is or the business is, it actually grows, and it's a much more cohesive team because you have viewpoints from different generations. They really end up being complementary. One thing, since we're in a church, one thing that churches in my day job that I have found that are really, really helpful is when you're meeting in person or even through Zoom, and you know that somebody has been pretty regularly attending, and all of a sudden that person's not attending, and maybe somebody has moved in with them, it's typically a family member, to check in on that person and to actually talk to that person. Again, I work with elder justice issues, and sometimes that's where that abuse and neglect and financial exploitation can be prevented from just checking in. I know our seniors, and many people too in the pandemic, have been very isolated, so starting those kind of friendship check-ins, which a lot of faith communities play a huge and very significant role in keeping those connections alive.
Yeah, are there any other red flags that we could be watching out for? Because we have a befrienders team that calls our oldest population and members of the church who live alone. And so it's an important ministry which we just started right before COVID hit, which
Oh,
was so important because we were
vital.
all isolated. I mean, there's certain people that are isolated no matter what, but
Mm-hmm.
then we all became isolated, and so it became an important check-in tool. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but any red flags that I could pass on to that group?
I think it's really monitoring, like, if there's changes. Like I said, if somebody has been attending church regularly and all of a sudden they're not, and then you're trying to reach them, but all of a sudden there's a gatekeeper and you're not able to reach that person, to reach out to see if maybe a welfare check could be done on the person, to actually lay eyes on that person or actually hear them, without that gatekeeper around. Um, I think that's one of the biggest kind of signs that there's something maybe going on here, and it might not be anything bad, but it's always good to check on it.
Yeah.
Um, and that isolation, it warms my heart that you guys have a Befrienders program. That's one of the things that I would like, a lot of the faith, or all the faith communities, to maybe look at developing. Isolation, even when COVID is not present, is something that is really, something that permeates our older population and our younger population too, though.
Yeah, there's a lot
Yep.
of people in every age group actually
Yep.
living alone or who may be isolated from
Right.
a support network of some sort.
Yep. It's just
Yeah.
nice to hear somebody call in to say, "Hi, how are you?"
It's so important. And we've
Hmm.
actually had this telephone technology for
Yes.
like a century.
Yes.
So we can still use it. It works really well.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and it is harder to find a way to get into people's lives, and we don't always have their phone numbers, but yet just
Hmm.
to try to be creative and even just knocking
Right.
on their door and seeing what we can do.
Right.
It's
Right.
important
Absolutely.
to keep checking in on people. I'm wondering, what makes you get out of bed every day?
Well, to be honest, it is my dogs, who insist I get out, or my husband will get out with the dogs, and then he comes back and says, "Why don't you ever get out with the dogs?" So then ultimately it's really the dogs, and then it's the lure of the coffee pot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and after those two boxes are checked,
Yep.
then it's the work that I do. I've always lived a servant leadership lifestyle, I guess, with all of the work that I've done with, abuse victims, survivors actually, and yeah, just that, and then serving the community in this role. Somebody asked me one time, what is, it's kind of what you'd ask, what is my project? What are my passions? And I really think my passion is serving, because I don't have, a golfing hobby or other intense hobbies. It's really just serving and learning how I can help and be
Yeah.
involved in the community.
Well, and I'm sure you bring a lot with you just in how you answered the question. You talked about working with abuse victims and then said survivors, but that's it's a path that people move on
It is.
because you probably have worked with people in that moment where they are the abuse victim, but then they'll need that help and support and resources to move them from being victim to being a survivor
Yes.
and learning how to build life after they've experienced some really significant setbacks.
Yep. Absolutely. And there's nothing more humbling than to see somebody who has experienced, some really horrifying tragedy in their life than just to make that transformation and become a survivor in every sense of that word. It brings tears to my eyes, and it fills my bucket. It fills my cup.
Yeah.
To really see if I maybe played a small role in that. When I was, appointed mayor, I actually saved this email, and I hope I don't cry during this part or sharing this story. I actually got an email, from a person that I had assisted probably 15 years ago. And he said that the assistance that I was able to provide and the support that I was able to provide, and even the words, that I said at that time, helped him get through a really challenging and hard time in his life. And I actually had to go back and kind of look up what was that case, what was that situation. And I've met different people throughout my career where they have approached me afterwards and said, "You were so helpful and you were so meaningful." And it makes me just want to sit down and cry, because I don't know what it is that I did. It's something really simple, but I think it really comes down to that I truly care, and I just really want to help somebody. And if it's just to say this is a resource that could be helpful to you, and encourage them to do that, and then they do that, I don't really feel that I played a role in that, but apparently they do. But it's really all of them. It's all that they did.
But I think it really translates that work that you did, and that you still do today, and how then you are leading the city. Because, like you said earlier, we're greater than the sum of our parts. And so we all have a
Yeah.
role to play.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that we do better when we have certain supports and people and all the right things around us. Like when we have meaningful relationships and purpose and wonderful things that we can be a part of.
Right.
It actually makes us healthier as people, but then that contributes to the community too.
Right.
So if in your work over the years you were a part of a support system, or you helped provide a resource, or just helped when somebody was at a really low moment, it helped them see the next step.
Yeah.
That's significant. And I think that lends itself to what we can do as a community.
Yeah, I do a lot of training. I've done a lot of training across the United States and in a couple of foreign countries too. And I know that one of the things that I've talked about a lot is no wrong door. And really emphasizing that it doesn't matter who you go to or kind of what door you go to, as long as that door is opened and people are allowed in. For resources, for help, for comfort, for whatever it is, for celebrations. And that's really what it's about. That's what community is about, that there's never any wrong door. And I really, truly believe that that's what Moorhead is. We're no wrong door. If I think about all of the departments in the city, if you call our engineering department, and it shouldn't be maybe them that is the one answering the question, they're going to give you the number of who to call over in our public works department. And public works says, really, that's not us. It should be something in law enforcement. And we don't have any wrong doors in the city government. We are all about really helping our community and getting people their needs addressed, making sure that they're safe, making sure they have nice streets to drive on and their garbage is picked up and they have beautiful parks to go and enjoy in the winter and the summer, and all of the seasons that we have.
Yes, and the parks have been amazing in the winter and the summer, and I think more people than ever have been experiencing our parks.
Right.
Because I feel like so many of us have been trying to get outside more, socializing outside more during COVID, and the cross-country ski trails were really beautiful in our parks. I mean, we have some fantastic gems in our area. So
we really do.
I'm thankful for the work of our whole city, and I'm thankful for your contribution to making Moorhead a strong place, an inclusive place, a place where we can care for one another.
Where the strong belong.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add? Is there any thoughts that have come up in our conversation?
Only that I really appreciate when citizens reach out to us and let us know if just simple things. If the street light is out, let us know. If there's a pothole, let us know. We have, miles and miles of streets. We have, I don't know how many street lights. Simple things, just let us know. We get a lot of emails from citizens saying, oh, I just told them about, X, Y, and Z, and they were out the next day. A lot of times we just don't know. We simply don't know. And I love the fact that our citizens are very eager to share their input and their insight and their experience. And I just say keep doing it, because, like you said, we're the sum of our parts. We are, 40,000 people that can create this amazing, rich fabric of the city of Moorhead.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for our Leading the Conversations this month. And if there is something that you can do in your neighborhood, chip in. If you can adopt a hydrant, if you can check on a neighbor, and if something isn't working, call the city and let them know. But it's a responsibility that we all share, and we can care for one another as Jesus has asked us to, in these small and simple ways as well. So thank you for joining us on Leading the Conversation.